Welcome to the Project StarBeam podcast. We're humanity's interstellar message service, where you can beam your personal messages into the stars. Why send messages? Most scientists agree aliens are out there somewhere. They may be listening, and we target the best listening sites. Aliens who can hear us are also beings we can learn from, maybe having solved the social problems we face today. We do this not because it is easy, but because it is hard. It demands high technology, art, bringing people together from around the world, and along the way, we learn while having fun. We are Project StarBeam.
All right. Well, my name is Chris Kent. I'm your co-host. I'm Chief Science Officer of Project StarBeam. My background is in computer science, biology, education, space studies, and entrepreneurship. Dr. Daystrom?
And I'm Michael Daystrom, co-host. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Project StarBeam. My background is engineering, computer science, space studies, cryptography, and also I'm a business strategist. And thank you, everybody, for attending.
Yes, attending our first show. So, we're here to kick things off and explain what you, our audience, our listeners, can expect. We were organizing the show into a number of segments, which we'll go through as we go along in this hour. Our regular shows are going to be approximately an hour long, and we'll have an intermission halfway. We'll let you know. So in this first half, let's start with aliens and extraterrestrial life. So alien life in our solar system is something we're looking for. This is something that we think there's scientists, there's a great consensus that we could have alien life on Mars, an even greater chance in some of the watery, icy moons around Jupiter and Saturn, so like Europa and Enceladus. And out in the galaxy, now that in the last few decades, we've discovered that there are billions of planets. It's something we didn't know 30 years ago. We suspected, but now we know that there are billions of planets around every star that you see, and that's only a fraction that there are in the galaxy. There's a planetary system of some kind. And if you multiply that out, the fact that there's most likely simple life just in our solar system close by, you multiply that out into the galaxy, that means there's at least a handful of intelligent species out there. And so that leads us to the question of the Fermi paradox. And that's something that we've been asking, scientists have been asking since the early days of astronomy. And it was actually in the 1940s that this line of thinking started to evolve, of why we haven't encountered extraterrestrial civilizations. Even though they suspected even back then, it's a high probability that we have other, ETIs, other aliens with technology in our system, it's in our galaxy. And so this is the kind of thing that we're going to explore throughout our show. These kind of topics, things like alien communications, exoplanets. Yeah, it's going to be a wild ride, and that's part of it. It's a lot of fun. Doctor, if you wouldn't mind going through the formalities of what is SETI and METI. So when we say SETI, SETI, what do we mean?
Well, it's the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And Carl Sagan actually had a lot to do with kicking that off. And it's still functional today. And basically what we're doing is listening for messages that could possibly be coming from other life forms in out in space. And it's kind of cool because they've put some pretty good analytics together to basically filter out the noise, so to speak. Okay, which out without discounting some noise, which could be a component of the reality, but for the most part, what they're looking for are signals that appear to be repetitive and possibly have some content rather behind them. Okay, that they could take and analyze to some level. And there's been a lot of different myths over the years that yes, they've discovered basically transmissions that they don't want to share with the public because they're still trying to figure them out. Again, you don't know whether or not any of that is true, but the principle behind SETI and Carl Sagan's vision is just totally powerful because
Right.
he was spot on. And
Yeah, for sure.
and
And
if you
now you mentioned Contact, and that was a movie that he wrote the book for, right?
yes, and
Right.
that was actually and if people have seen that movie. I think they would understand the SETI piece quite well. Anybody that hasn't, it's worth the watch. It's a lot of drama, but there are some deep components to it, which I believe to this day really do matter. And we've scratched the surface. And Carl Sagan did a fantastic job of putting his vision out there, but also getting people to listen. And
Right.
yeah, there's some naysayers and so forth, but that kind of goes with the territory. Now, on the Medi side, okay, that's us messaging extraterrestrial intelligence by sending messages from Earth into space. All right. What is kind of unique, and this goes back to Carl Sagan, is on the Voyager spacecraft, there is a golden disk, which is part of the spacecraft itself that contains a tremendous amount of data on this disk that's relevant to humanity at the time it was sent. This is everything from music to information to writings to maps and so forth, and that is just absolutely a huge piece to what sending the sending his first message out there actually is that's pretty awesome. Okay. Um, the other part that we may want to touch on a little bit, okay, is the dark forest myth, okay, which basically says that aliens are already here, okay, and they're kind of studying us. Now, that could be a possibility. Again, this is something that is this part of science fiction or is there a reality, so to speak? I don't think at this point we even still know enough about it. And
Right. And the dark forest, but what they mean by that is studying us and not as a good way, like as a that the space and the stars they're full of predatory aliens, right?
right,
That's yeah, and so yeah, and definitely I agree with you. It makes for good science fiction. It's like the early movies, like what was the one we were talking about? Um, the one The Day the Earth Stood Still,
oh
classic
yeah,
science fiction movie. Very scary, right? I mean, especially in a modern sense. Okay, maybe there are horror has evolved a little bit, but science fiction needs to motivate you, needs to scare you about robot apocalypses or, some sort of big event. And this is more fiction than reality. And so we're going to go and we'll explore through the fullness of time why actually, like we say in our intro, the beings that are able to hear us and the beings that might already be here with probes and listening stations, the places they're listening from, if it's in our system, they're so advanced that they've come here. I mean, they're so far ahead of us that they're not here to take anything from us. They're likely here just to study us. And we have far more to gain through that relationship than we do. Um, it brings me back to some of the cautionary tales that say Stephen Hawking was saying. Right, his position was that we should really avoid sending messages because of what we did to each other, when different cultures met. But the thing is, we're primitive. That's like we haven't come even out of the cradle yet. We haven't even taken our very first steps into space have been temporary.
Right.
So yeah, so I think it's we'll go into the ethics of that. That's something, of course, we've explored,
Right.
being the project we have, and that's something we'll regularly touch on.
Yeah.
Um, Now, what was next in our docket here? You were going to mention something about UFOs.
Yes, but I want to touch on one more point regarding
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Medi and so forth. Okay, and this is hypercritical to the system that we built and continue to expand and so forth. Okay, um, we must never ever ever assume similarity in the way others think or others respond. Now, this goes to life here on Earth because, to assume that any culture you're dealing with holds exactly the same values or the phrases and so forth mean the same thing that you're expressing. Okay, that's not true. And that's just something that we need to keep in the back of our head when we're dealing with extraterrestrials as well. Okay. And the second thing is, and this is back to Carl Sagan's magic disc, is there may be a civilization, 1,000 years out there that'll find that someday, but not quite know what it is. And it could wind up hanging on the wall in a scientist office somewhere, 1,000 years away from Earth or whatever. Or there could be others that would analyze that and go, "Wow, we need to go visit these guys." So that's the other extreme. So um,
That's the interesting thing I find too is that you know it's well, I mean, there's so many interesting things in our project that we've been developing for a couple years now behind the scenes, and now we're just pushing it out, and this is our effectively our launch is the podcast. And the interesting thing from besides all the technology, which is fascinating, besides the science, the cultural aspects are very interesting. The communications aspects,
right,
where in assembling a message of universal friendship that's honest, and they went through the same thing with the golden record for Voyager, right? They tried to get something, they want us to give a positive message. Obviously, you're trying to make friends, but you want to have something that's intelligible and something that communicates an honest view of our culture. And so, in getting this together and getting, this is why we mentioned in our introduction, we have to get people from all around the world together. We have to bring together not only do we have to do the science, but we have to do the art as well. We have to represent the best of humanity, but also an honest picture of humanity. And
absolutely.
that's where, of course, the personal interstellar messages, the messages that you, the listener, can send, and that we collate and then send out, we loop and target to the various listening sites that are the high probability sites.
Right.
These are a way of, number one, democratizing the SETI and MEDI efforts. There have been brief MEDI efforts before. We're not exactly the first, but we're the first to do it on a sustained basis, and we're the first that isn't just decided by the leader of an academic group, a university professor in charge of a product or a government. Um, our project is driven by you, the listener. It's driven by people,
Mhm.
and so as a cultural project, this is a way that we can all leave an incredible legacy.
Right. So going back to the next topic you put in my direction there. Okay.
Oh, right, right. Yep.
UFOs, unidentified flying objects. Okay. And I hate the term UAPs, by the way.
Right. Yeah. It's the modern term, right?
Yes.
And what does it stand for? I always have a problem with this one.
Yeah.
But what is it?
unidentified anomalous phenomenon.
Phenomena. Yeah, that's right. UAP.
Uh,
I always want to say aerial because
yeah,
I'm
I did
copying.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm copying UFO, right? But no, it's anomalous phenomenon because it also covers a bunch of weird, stuff that maybe would be in previous decades would be covered under paranormal research or the supernatural. Um, it covers a lot of territory now that they have these anomalous, unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Right.
And now you had mentioned we had been talking in just before the show. We had been talking about Project Blue Book. Let's talk. Let's start with that again.
Okay. All right. So, Project Blue Book was something that the Air Force had pulled together with Dr. Alan Hynek and some other scientists, and they were tasked with, okay, investigating UFO sightings or claims that people were seeing aliens and so forth. And the mission was to basically dismiss whatever they could as natural phenomena. Okay. And to kind of calm the public down in reference to UFOs and so forth. Now, I have an opinion about that. I'll get to in just a minute. Okay. And, at the end of the day, this was everything from seeing, static discharge in the middle of nowhere to swamp gas to different, things like that. And, what Hynek finally, came to the conclusion was from a scientific perspective, yes, 80+% of what people think they're seeing actually could be explainable by science in reference to Earth-like, physical activity and so forth. All right,
Yeah,
but that 20%, the remaining 20%, the unexplainable, okay, is really an area that they attempted to target. And the problem with that is, and I'll come back to the use of the term UFO versus UAP, okay, is a lot of what was going on at the time were distractions. And some of that began, a little bit pre-Roswell, but, right around the Roswell incident, all right, the UFO mix was brought into the play. Okay. And then over time, if UFOs, began to kind of pop up and, here, there, everywhere. And, at the end of the day, a lot of it was actually used by the Pentagon community as mechanisms by which distractions could be created because
right.
there's some type of other activity from a technology perspective going on that the average person really is not supposed to know about. Okay.
Yeah. Like
However,
we didn't actually know as a culture for decades about Lockheed Martin Skunk Works being at Area 51, right?
correct,
It was just Area 51. It was just a mystery,
right.
right? Yeah,
And nobody knew the science that actually came out of that. Now it's a pretty interesting thing that nowadays they'll say, well, a lot of that science was brought to us by aliens. Okay, that's
yeah, yeah.
so
Well, yeah,
phew,
it's fun to talk about. Fun to talk about. Yeah, I
yeah,
don't
it
believe that
is.
particular one, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, okay, the distraction slash the distortion, okay, played out by government agencies to kind of keep other things a secret. It kind of evolved around the whole UFO thing. All right.
right.
Now, I do find it very interesting that there's been more than one former president of the United States who basically said, once I take office, I'm going to find out the truth about UFOs. Okay. And nothing ever comes of that.
Yeah.
I do find that
And
kind
there's been there were at least one astronaut. That was Scott Carpenter, was it? I want to say there's one astronaut that did talk about aliens. One of the Apollo astronauts, I think. No, he was a Mercury
well,
astronaut.
as I say, he was a Mercury astronaut.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
and generals have come out. Like I know I'm a Canadian, and um, our defense minister, our head of defense. our defense minister up here, he actually came out towards the end of his life and said there's a galactic federation of aliens and all of this.
Mhm.
Top level Israeli people have come out and said similar things. So it's a fascinating topic. It really is.
Yeah. And I want to be absolutely clear here. Okay. I do believe 100% that intelligent life outside of our planet does exist. It's there. Okay.
Right.
And, have they made contact or attempted to make contact with us? I do believe that. Okay. We don't necessarily know with who or how yet. Okay. But those are things that we need to, consider
Yeah.
along with the distraction and the distortion of the facts that come out of various agencies or news media or whatever. So, a key part of our project is really to kind of bring the science into this. Much like Carl Sagan did, and
Exactly.
that is something that we just never want to discount is the science because um, humanity, our humanity, if you will, okay, and survival of such is critical. So everything that we can learn, through science and technology and so forth, is going to be critical to our future. And that way down the line, if the right people or the right beings come our direction and say, "Hi there," okay,
Yeah.
we do need to be ready for that. And
Exactly. And not only will we be ready, but I think it, especially in our current era, where we're running this planet-wide experiment, which is the internet, the World Wide Web,
right,
and social media, where these are powerful, powerful um, social cues, and the social media software, the sites, they're powerful motivations that we've never, as a species, as a civilization, we've never run into any of this before. So, and now, of course, with deep fakes and everything like that. So it's very important, I think, to be able to distinguish and to reason through what could be likely and what isn't likely, and what you probably should discount and maybe what you shouldn't discount. So, this is an ongoing thing. There's a lot of value in the UFO UAP discussion, aside from just being fun. It's one of my favorite conspiracy things.
yeah, but
Uh,
I'm sorry not to interrupt, but back to your
yeah,
point. Um, on the other side of the coin, there is a science behind this.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And have aliens continued to visit Earth over the you know tens of thousands of years. I think it's entirely possible.
Oh
Okay.
yes. And
Uh,
in subsequent episodes, for you, the listeners out there, you can expect us to get into the weeds once in a while. We will go into some interesting detail and interesting cases. Um, and This show, of course, we're just going through all of the segments and the kinds of topics that you can expect.
right.
And we'll even go into a few, but like for UFOs, I do really enjoy some of the debunking, right? Like personally, I've had a couple of personal UFO experiences that I know are not true, but they were so incredible. And one of them was, I used to live in an area with a lot of hills and very low mountains, basically. And so if you had some cloud cover above and you had cars with their high beams on, and they were cresting a hill, this kind of thing. You might not be able to see the car or the road for the tree cover and whatnot, but you could see the high beams on the underside of the clouds. And this is one of the most common things that people who see UFOs sometimes mistake. But it looks so real, and you've got a couple UFOs that are each of the high beams, right, that are chasing each other in the cloud layer, and they're luminous, and it looks amazing if you get it from the right angle and you can't see the car, you don't know what's going on because you don't know the magic trick, right? Yeah, but then I read about it later on. I'm like, oh, of course, that's what it was, right? And then you go back to it, you see it again, you're like, yeah, that's where the road is, right? So
Uh,
yeah,
I had a
it's
similar experience when I was a kid, and that is um, it was nighttime, and there was an airplane that was pulling an electronic sign behind the aircraft. Okay. And it was like one of the first times I think I'd ever seen anything like that when I was a kid. But what was interesting was the sign, one of the mechanisms holding it behind the plane had actually become disconnected. So the sign itself was still lit, but there was this giant kind of wavy light thing in the sky. And a lot of people actually thought, that was it, me included, actually thought that was a UFO because you really couldn't see the airplane and so forth. And it was like, wow, what is that? What is that? And that made the news, as a matter of fact. And then it got explained later, but that was one of Hynek's initial Blue Book projects was kind of let's take a look at that and here's the explanation. Okay, that's good. But on the unexplainable side, and this is just something that we have to just keep in mind, is there have been a lot of people that have had experiences that can't be explained, or individuals that have this moment where um, they mm, have had a pause in time, okay, or something where all of a sudden 30 minutes has gone by and they have no idea what just happened in the previous 30 minutes. As maybe they had pulled over to the side of the road because they thought they saw something or whatever. Those are intriguing things. Now, was that some kind of energy discharge that maybe messed them up a little bit, or was there somebody that maybe wanted to take a read on the human, so to speak?
maybe that was the catch and release moment, right? Put a tag in the smallmouth bass and throw it back. That kind of thing.
Well,
So
that's quite the analogy. Yes. So,
yeah, yeah. And this is the thing. In going and debunking stuff and looking through, we can look through unsolved mysteries, which was a good show back in the day. Um, X Files. And we'll get into science fiction after the halfway mark. Uh, where are we for time, by the way, Doctor?
we got about 2 minutes left.
Okay, all right. So yeah, so that's these first three segments that we've gone through. So aliens, extraterrestrial life, and of course this is approximate SETI and METI, where we're going to go through more of the academic things. Of course, it's all still science oriented, but it's more towards the astronomy, the radio telescopes, and specifically what we're doing with how we send the messages, how our technology works, um, but also historical stuff. We're going to go through. You'll hear the name Frank Drake, uh, and he ran the Arecibo Observatory, which was one of the most powerful radars out there ever. Really, had a megawatt class radar transmitter. And then, of course, UFOs, UAPs. If we're lucky enough, we're going to bring on some great guests in the future. Maybe we'll even get Ancient Aliens, Giorgio. Uh, that'd be a real blast.
That, you know what, that would be actually. But yeah, so we're coming down to our final minute before our break. Okay. And again, I just want to say, our goal, okay, it's twofold. It's to make our presence known to those that are well outside our solar system. And in addition to that, just to make sure that from a science perspective, we continue to put the right technology behind everything, but also our culture here on Earth continue to help grow that from the science and technology perspective to make sure that you know the youth's got some interesting projects they can work on and so forth. So
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
The educational potential is. I mean,
huge.
that's the thing that personally motivates me. This is a tremendous opportunity to take something fun and engaging and not in the kind of I mean, you hear terms thrown around like edutainment, and
Right.
it's not entertaining, it's not fun. But this stuff, I mean, you can't. It's infectious. You can't stop it from being fun. But there's legitimate science, and really, like you say, cool projects that we've got in the way. We'll announce all of that, and the listeners should stay tuned for that.
We've hit our halfway mark.
Okay, so let's see. Halfway, we basically want you to please, if you can, follow us, subscribe if you're listening on YouTube or on X. Those are going to be our main two, and Spotify. Those are our main three platforms. We're going to syndicate this as a audio podcast, but also some platforms we're going to have some interesting visuals for you on the video side. And of course, visit our site. That's projectstarbeam.com, all one word, projectstarbeam.com. And of course, you can always remember that because you're beaming your messages to the stars. And we'd like to ask you to think about what you would say to aliens if you could. So you send your personal, of course, send personal interstellar messages. Please do if you have a chance, but help us make contact. Now, for those of you who need to take a break, this is a good, this is a good opportunity to take five, because now for the next 5 or so minutes, we're going to do a couple of items of current events from our X feed, formerly Twitter, and that's our kind of home on social media. So here we go. Why don't you kick off the first of our picks for this show, Dr. Daystrom?
Okay. Well, first of all, one of the things that we're I'm totally impressed with, okay, is SpaceX's most current project. They catch the giant booster.
Yeah,
Okay. To
good
me,
thing.
that is just absolutely epic because when I grew up, I can remember the Apollo spacecraft. Okay. And me actually watching the Saturn V, take off and so forth. And when I was a little bit older, I actually got to walk up and take a look at a dismantled Saturn V and just could not believe how huge that thing was. But I do remember as a kid sitting back and going, man, why can't they reuse that? Okay. And, I would say that for SpaceX to achieve um, their first experiment about actually capturing their giant booster and
With the
bringing
chopsticks. Yeah,
the chopsticks and bringing that in and, to the landing station and so forth and securing it without incident, that is huge. It's huge from a scientific perspective. It's also huge from the opportunity side, where now we've got a reusable component. Okay. And also from an environmental side, that is pretty sweet as well, because we're not dropping that back into the ocean, so to speak, uh,
that's it. That's
which
it.
is
Yeah.
which is really huge. So as far as an achievement goes, that is an epic achievement.
Yeah, and people don't realize, I think they don't give SpaceX and a lot of the some of the other companies are about to, I think, have good hardware too. Like Blue Origin is going to get ready with its New Glenn. Even ULA with its Vulcan, there's some reusability there. But this is all very hard and very new.
Yep.
Um, Rocketry itself is hard. If you look at what they call the rocket equation, um, and because if you're going to push the rocket, um, you need to use propellant, and that propellant has to go through engines, and it needs tanks, it needs structure, and so you need so many. You need X units of propellant, however many tons, and then if you want to add payload, well, you need more propellant. But because you have more propellant, you need more tank mass. Because you have more, you need another engine. Then you need more propellant. And you end up with this really, really narrow mass budget of just about 2% of your vehicle is actually something that you can get reliably into orbit. And that 2% is with the non-reusable rockets.
Right.
So with a reusable rocket, it's even less because you got to save fuel for the landing. Everything's got to be, it's just such a, you know, like normal rocketry. My hat is off to those engineers. But what they've managed to achieve at SpaceX with the Falcon 9, which
Yep.
is now the most reliable rocket out there. They've had so many launches. Um, and then now, yeah, with the booster catch. And what just floors me is you know, uh, how giant that thing is.
Yeah, I
It's
can't believe it.
71 meters. It's a 15-story office building,
Yes.
you know, and the fact that it just hovered, and this thing is not actually all that robust. It's about the density of a beer can, so a thin metal shell, and a lot of its structural integrity is because it's actually pressurized with the gases from the liquid propellants gassing off on the inside.
Yep.
So this thing is actually needs some pretty delicate handling as well. It's designed to carry all the forces of acceleration through max Q, like pushing through the atmosphere at, incredible speeds. But it's designed to handle it just such a certain specific way. And the fact that they just managed to get everything to align so that it come back down and just sat onto those. And if you see the small, like if you see the little pins, the audience really, I would encourage you to go and look at. You're going to be able to find footage everywhere online about this.
Right.
But when it comes down, they have some camera views of the chopstick holders, and it's coming down, and it sits on these little pins,
Yep.
and these little pins go onto kind of some tabs on the chopsticks, and you see the chopstick tabs kind of going down like a button, like a space bar on a keyboard being pressed.
Right.
And it just ever so delicately sets down.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep. We're coming up to the end of our 5-minute break here.
Okay, so very quickly, I'm going to mention that was my pick, and this is we're always going to try and pick something, by the way, that you see on our X profile, on our X feed on StarBeam Social. That's our user, as opposed to Project StarBeam, which is our going to be our community or our channel on YouTube. But on StarBeam Social, you're going to see that we post various pics, and one of the great ones that I posted just a few days back is a scale drawing of the solar system with the Oort cloud. And now the Oort cloud is a massive cloud, about 3 to 3.5 light years across. Maybe some people say even a little bit more, but most of it is like this sphere of millions upon millions of icy objects, and some of them large. Actually, the Kuiper Belt is sometimes put in that. And so Pluto is one of these actually objects. All of these things that are trans-Neptunian, they say, so beyond the orbit of Neptune.
Right.
And so that's millions and millions of worlds, icy worlds that our telescopes are just being able to, we're just at the generation of technology where we can start to detect these things directly. Before we were estimating where they were by gravitational surveys and things like that. And so when we're targeting, we talked earlier about targeting locations for our signals. This is an example. There could be 100 civilizations worth of probes over the last 500 million years that have come to look for Earth biosphere information, looking at all the interesting animals and plants that are evolving. And there could be just probes littered out there. And until we get spacecraft and go out and take a look at all these different worlds, we don't even have a chance of finding these telescopes. But our project is sending signals out there, and we're going to have interstellar signals going out in early 2025, which is an amazing thing. Really, it's something that
Absolutely.
Yeah, and maybe even if they have a really quite a decent antenna, they have a good antenna array, like several, a constellation of satellites, like something like Starlink, but it was dedicated towards observation, towards radio astronomy. They can pick us up in the within 5, maybe more light years. So we actually could be getting signals out to the nearest star systems.
Yep.
You never know. It's all two to tango. So we do our best for what we can, and we're going to ramp up. And then, of course, if the aliens are listening, hello,
Yep. Well, we need to move on to our second half. Okay.
right?
And
Oh, this is a fun one. This is a fun one. Yeah.
just a fun one. Okay. And I'll uh, I'll let you go ahead and get started on this one.
Okay. So the second half, we have a few segments here, and we're probably going to see a little less of these segments, but we include them because they're really, really motivational or entertaining. So we'll start with science fiction, specifically the hard or realistic science fiction. Often they call it hard because the hard sciences are the physical sciences versus the soft science, like the social sciences. So they call it hard science fiction or diamond hard sometimes if there's we're not following anything except what we know in physics. One of the best, most recent examples that comes to my mind is a favorite show of mine, The Expanse. And The Expanse, for much of the first season, you don't see anything that we couldn't achieve. All of the spaceships and the drives and the stations and all the drama, and they're on series, and you see the Coriolis effect where they're pouring a drink and you can tell they're in artificial gravity, rotational gravity, because the drink curves. All these little touches. Um, the Expanse did such a great job of showing what space would realistically be like in maybe 100 years. In some ways, maybe less, maybe 50 years. We're going to have a bunch of people out there. I hope sooner, but if we leave it just to NASA, I don't know. But that's The Expanse. And then we'll discuss, of course, the subtopics. We're going to discuss, alien civilizations. There's been a number of good, book series and whatnot where they look at different alien cultures that could evolve. We also touch a lot in science fiction on AI. So, for instance, I would encourage people haven't read anything by Ian Banks, look for Ian Banks' Culture series, because this is a series where it's our future, our far future, but we create these AI, these massive minds, artificial minds that basically run society for us, and it's all the implications of that. So science fiction, great for exploring different topics, and what you're ultimately exploring is you're exploring topics of today, important things that a lot of people care about, but you're exploring it in a way that is not so personal. It's not our politics; it's the politics of the far future. So it doesn't have the same kind of, maybe the same kind of bite that talking about current events might. Now, what's some of your favorite sci-fi, Doctor?
Well, I would have to say, in the more recent years, the Expanse actually uh, was one of my favorites because I do think it kind of took a step back, grabbed our modern culture, if you will, and then moved it forward, obviously into the solar system and whatnot. And I think they did a fantastic job because I do think that that's pretty much how it's going to be. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So, Star Trek's Deep Space Nine. Okay, they did a little bit of that, which wasn't bad. Okay, but
yeah.
to me, the Expanse itself was just quite the series. I absolutely enjoyed that. Now, I did grow up with Lost in Space and Star Trek, the original series and whatnot. and I've kind of followed all that forward, and do believe that some of those original sci-fi series, okay, were quite the inspiration for people that were trying to figure out what they wanted to do maybe when they grew up. Okay.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
look at all the engineers
Right.
and scientists that directly testified and directly attribute their careers to the classic Star Trek. Flip phones, right?
Yeah, there you go. But back in the day, after watching some of those shows and whatnot, I conducted some experiments on my own, which we won't get into that on this. But it was that was quite the time. And sci-fi moved forward and it's branched into some pretty good franchises. There are others that are, I'll just say it, are more comical. Okay.
Sure.
But there's some pretty serious things to consider as well. I will also say that when I was young, I saw the Day the Earth Stood Still, the original one, and I was like, "Whoa!" I kind of stood back and looked at that, and I'm like, "Okay, so they really could come here and visit, as far as aliens go and whatnot."
Yeah.
And to me, that was again, something that was inspiring
Yeah.
and so forth. But
I think there's a lot of elements too of, I mean, we're not necessarily going to stick to the completely hard sci-fi. We're gonna, because we want to have fun.
right,
So there's shows that are like, for instance, I know you also you were the one who turned me on to it, is Resident Alien, right? And with Alan Tudyk, and that show, although I mean they have a complete, the technology and whatnot that the aliens have, that's complete fantasy as far as physics goes, but some of the ways that the aliens behave and whatnot, they paid a lot of attention to making it kind of very believable, and how the aliens might view humanity. But these are all very interesting things that can be explored,
right, absolutely.
and
And
it's hilarious.
yeah, and there's a tagline in that show that I actually just absolutely love. Okay, and the prime character Harry, okay, says, "This is some bullshit," when he's trying to figure out
We go.
how
There
things
we go.
how things work. And that's I'm like, wow, okay, he nailed that. So
I like how the aliens share moments of, there's this commercial, um, for this unbreakable fabric, um, that's apparently made into pants, in the greater galaxy, and it's a very popular thing, right? And the two aliens are very clearly sharing a treasured, funny moment, um, because they both seen this commercial, right? And it's like one of the classic commercials of their cultures. And but to us, it's completely not funny. It's just such a weird, like, and then they both laugh,
right,
and it's and this is the kind of the thing that, where we we have to kind of think, well, like you said, what's you're saying, and this is not, of course, that's not the first time I've heard that saying from you. It's one of your classic sayings where we can't assume similarity, right?
we can't. And
And and demonstrating that, they did a really good job of that,
yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah, culturally very good. Now, of course, we're not just all about fiction.
right,
So the related segment to that is we're actually going to delve into a lot of interesting science, technology, and space studies. And here's where we've got, this is going to be the meat and potatoes, the educational content, but some of the things that are happening, like the booster catch,
right.
what SpaceX is doing, NASA's Artemis program, the new moon program. Some of these things are so cool. Um, there's going to be worlds to explore there. Besides the booster catch, what's kind of like, what comes to mind as one of the things that you find in the last, say, year?
Oh, artificial intelligence.
Ah,
Uh,
yes, of course.
in the use of the use of AI. Okay, which I'm going to start out by saying, There's a lot of distortion and distraction that goes with that. Okay. But it's interesting because there's a question that I put out to people, and a lot of people cannot answer this, is when it comes to machine learning, okay, and artificial intelligence, the question I often ask people is, who are the machines? And
Yes.
believe it
Talk
or
about
not, 8 out of 10 people cannot answer that
yeah.
because
Well,
at
it's
the
a
end of the
pretty
day,
deep answer.
well,
The actual answer is quite,
but but it's pretty simple too. At the end of the day, we are the machines. Okay.
yes. Yeah.
We're the ones creating the technology. We're the ones, writing the scripts. We're the ones making sure, supposedly, okay, that all things are, working the way they've been designed to work. Okay, which brings up two things which I find kind of interesting. One is Stephen Hawking did warn about AI and making sure that we really, really, really needed to keep our hands on that. And the scenario that he used in his last book was, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but basically, if we're using artificial intelligence to control the watering of the crops in California, and all of a sudden the AI says, "Yeah, we're just spending too much water on these people." Okay. And all of a sudden decides to stop watering the crops because the AI itself doesn't need to eat. Okay. That's almost a segment right out of the Terminator. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But without going down that path, the other side, which is interesting too, is as AI develops, okay, unless there's a human component to make sure, okay, that the use of it, is transparent, okay, and it's ethical and explainable, because people need to grasp that and make sure that when they're putting these systems together that are going to control missions while the astronauts and crew are maybe in suspended animation or something like that. Those things need to be taken into account. And right now, the AI evolution, if you will, everything changes within 6 to 8 weeks now.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah. It's an amazing time. And this is where, well, of course, something we're going to get into more in subsequent episodes and phases of the project.
right.
Um, as a project, and this is for the listeners who maybe are newer. What we do is we're starting off our project on the basis of sending messages to extraterrestrial intelligence, whether it's here, for to listening posts or probes that may be already in our system, to as far out as we can get with our current generation of technology, which is actually interstellar. We're sending your messages, your personal interstellar messages, along with different aspects of the best achievements of human culture, how to understand our language through physics. We're sending all of this out, and as from a communications basis, we're trying to communicate with aliens. Now, the interesting thing with artificial intelligence, or as I mean, both of us, we have a computing background, and both of us have actually worked and work in machine learning. We like to say machine learning, ML. Uh, but so in machine learning, um, you know, researchers are often very aware that we're creating something that is not necessarily human. It may it may use human language, but it doesn't reason like a human. And it's not, and we don't even necessarily know how humans reason, completely. That's also a black box. But we are essentially in the process of a big experiment right now. In the last few years, it's really kicked off and got funding. This generation of AI we're creating might be intelligent. It might actually be something that is a sophont, a sentient thinking being.
Mhm.
And so, our project has a giant relevance in the current era because we are creating a communications based template so that alien entities, alien minds can understand humanity. So, pretty big deal, I think.
Yep. And I just want to come back to, the three components that are critical to AI, okay, which is transparency, accountability, and explainability. And we've all, we must never, ever, ever lose track of that. And back to your sci-fi topic early on.
Right. Yeah.
There was an interesting 1970s movie called Colossus the Forbin Project.
Yeah. I know it well. Yeah. Go
And
ahead.
that was a good one, where our government went ahead and installed a supercomputer named Colossus, okay, that was supposed to just manage all kinds of things, okay, including our defense systems. And by the end of the movie, it wound up taking over the world, okay, which because again, humans were not paying attention, what, whatever.
There you go. I
But
mean, it's not like we're doing something like making giant gigawatt scale data centers with AI and then hooking them up directly to the web, which runs all of our critical. Oh, wait, that is what we're doing.
Well, and the other thing too, which is kind of interesting, is I think it's awesome that Elon Musk named his Grok data center complex Colossus.
Yep, that's it.
I think
That's it.
I think that's hilarious. But the one other thing, real quick, is in reference to Arthur C. Clarke and the story 2001: Space Odyssey, and
Right.
and the fact that HAL was artificial intelligence and wound up being tasked with making some decisions based on the information that it had. Okay. And, again, you come back to accountability and transparency, and nobody quite knew what they were getting into.
That's it. That's it. And for listeners out there, you're going to hear the doctor and I talk about HAL and 2001 and 2010 and
Yeah.
Arthur C. Clarke's works. That this will be a thing that recurs. just
Um,
warning you all.
yeah, we're down to our last 15 minutes.
Okay,
And
so that's something we are going to go through. Now, I already mentioned for the people who are just joining us, I mentioned that we send personal interstellar messages. And so we're just going to go through what is a personal interstellar message. Well, within the limits of the technology that we have right now, because let me tell you, you think you're roaming when you're roaming with your cell phone on a country road. You think that's expensive? Well, interstellar data is very very expensive. So personal interstellar messages are limited to 200 characters. Now, of course, you can send multiples, right? But we do it in 200 characters. And the reason for that is not only do we have to keep it slim and we have to keep it lean to be able to transmit it efficiently and to loop it over and over again so that it can be heard. Your messages can have a chance of being heard because we don't know when the aliens are listening. But it's a natural language sample. It's organic. It reflects current vocabulary, current culture, and also it's your voice, your message, your legacy, because just like the intent behind Twitter, which is where the 200 characters came from, or SMS, we have the limit there so that it encourages you to really think about what you're sending. Think about, because you can do a lot with 200 characters. We've proved that in the last 20 years with, starting with texting and going on up. So, we target and loop for you, but when you send, basically just think about what you would say if you're making contact with aliens, because your message could be the one. It could be the first one. It could be the first one that if they crack the code. So that's what personal interstellar messages are, and you can send those through our site, and that's projectstarbeam.com, all one word, projectstarbeam, one word.com, and it brings you directly to the portal where you can send PIMs, personal interstellar messages. All right. And so then that brings us to our last couple oddball segments. No, well, not oddball, but these are going to be a little rarer. Doctor, your specialty is computing and data. So why don't you open that one up?
oh boy. Okay. So in reference to data, okay, um, it's absolutely hypercritical that the value of data is never underestimated. Okay. And a lot of people underestimate it because they don't take the time to actually look at what they've got and run the appropriate analytics to learn from it. Okay. And, in our particular case, we do understand that significantly. And so a lot of what we're doing is collecting, and again, this is within the process that we've developed, the data in the broadcast loop that we've got, okay, as well as impressions and so forth, because at the end of the time, or at the end of the day, okay, we're going to need that, okay. The quantum computing component, okay, which is again going to be part of moving into space once we achieve getting off this planet and so forth. Data is going to be absolutely critical,
Yeah,
and the way that it's used, the way that it's understood, and also the ability to mitigate manipulation by parties that will do that. I mean, we see that today, okay, on social media as well as the media networks and whatnot. And it's critical because in this particular case, we have the opportunity to, at the early stages, go, no, we're not gonna allow that. The data is the data. Now, presentation is another thing, but it's just something that should not be undervalued, okay, or misused.
yeah.
Lives could be,
And I find that one of the most compelling things. Your point on how our project especially, it revolves around the permanence of data. So we have highly curated data. What we choose to send, especially, we rank, and so because it's so hard to send a large volume of data so far, so we rank, and the PIMS. This is your legacy, right? And we're going to preserve this data. The actual plan is that we're going to, once we have a significant database built, we're going to preserve it in what they call 5D holographic memory crystals, which are quartz crystals, which have, actually, it's three-dimensional memory. But these quartz crystals are so durable because quartz is so stable over time that this memory has a chance of being read. I think the current IBM technology that we can buy commercially is 10,000 years, that they say it's rated for. But the technology itself, if you're a little more careful with it, it can go for 1 or more billion years, and that's billion with a B. And just to think, you know, um, for example, in terms of the fullness of time, all the things that we see that we've built around here, our cities, in the 10,000 year example, anything that's made out of metal is gone. It's a stain in the dirt because the metal will oxidize.
right.
Plastic, wood, forget about it. That's only a few hundred years. Stone buildings. The reason why a lot of the ancient ruins are all stone is because it lasts. But even then, how many ruins have we just uncovered by chance because they're buried over by the sands and by the jungles. So we're doing something that really is your legacy. If you send a pin with us, or if you join our community that we're getting together, and you become a curator or a creator, um, there's a real chance that we're going to make an impact on not only our future, but of course, as we are a messaging extraterrestrial intelligence, so we could make an impact on other cultures as well. It's really profound.
Yes. And, the thing that I want to stress is history is critical. Okay. And, every day actually is a historical moment for everyone. Okay. And we just need to make sure that we're preserving that for the future. Okay. And, to Chris's point, when we can eventually crystallize the data, if you will, um, that data itself can't be altered. In other words,
That's it.
it's a true, historical Rosetta Stone, so to speak. Okay.
Exactly.
that those are very, very powerful things. And there's a lot of unfortunately over the thousands of years, and this is part of data because data has existed all that time. Okay, there's a lot of things that or a lot of opportunities where those controlling the data manipulate it to basically feed back to the population and use it to control the masses. Okay, we're not about that at all. We want to make sure that you know what's being put out there is maintained, okay, not altered, and is secured as well. But it's for just generations way ahead of our own.
That's it. That's it. And and yeah, so those are our main segments. Now we will. How much time do we have left? We must be running back to we're into single digit in minutes, I think.
Yeah, we're down to 5 minutes.
Okay, so just enough time that we are going to cover a wide variety of topics. Now, one of them I bring this up as an example, is undersea exploration and living, and that's because Project StarBeam has its roots in basically space development, space exploration, space settlement um, projects. We all met each other through various new space endeavors. And one of the things that I want to see happen is I would like to see us explore, developing space technology, that a lot of it that needs to be developed, but using it also here on Earth and in our oceans. And so that's exploring things like undersea living and undersea exploration and undersea, biology. I remember when I was a kid, I'm an '80s, '90s kid, and so many people wanted to be, um, you know, um, wanted to be ocean biologists. That was one of the hot things. It had happened in movies and whatnot that had been popularized, and we've got away from some of these things. Appreciating what we have here. Um, so culturally, environmentally, I think these are strong themes that we need to explore. And in terms of, developing the Project Starbeam, the communications technology, the space science, all that kind of thing, there's all these parallels. And so we're going to be looking into so many great things that have application in our era, our time, our place right now. And it's going to be, yeah, it's a project that I think you, the listener, we encourage you really to tune into us next time. We're going to do this every 2 weeks. So this is the main distribution schedule is going to be at every 2 weeks, and this is going to be a wild ride. It's really going to be great.
Yeah, I just want to step into one thing real quick, which
Sure.
just, again, this kind of captures my heart, is the fact that we have the ability to inspire, let's say, somebody walking down the side of the road, okay, who's all of a sudden got an idea or a concept or, uh, you know, like their interest has been piqued by something, okay, to find a channel by which they could take and, begin to understand not only their vision, but maybe achieve it as well. Okay.
That's right.
That's the overall goal, that we've got. And, you know, sending the PIMs and so forth is a piece of a much bigger project.
That's right. And that's the way. I mean, that's the way we're going to ultimately, solve a lot of the issues that we have in our time right now is through innovation, through innovators.
Right.
In innovation, a lot of people mistake innovation and invention. They mistake these two things. They conflate them. And innovation is not just about inventing the next gizmo. It's not just about the next cell phone. It's not just about hardware or even just about software. Innovation can happen in finding just new and better ways to do things, process innovation. It can find, it can be about finding new and interesting ways to think about subjects, to look at them, to analyze them. And then, in the arts, a lot of people dismiss the arts. Educators, governments, when they go and do some funding, well, we got to do STEM, right? We got to do science, technology, engineering, and math. Well, there's a lot that's very important outside STEM, and that's why we do something called STEAM. We put the arts in. Now, it'll be applied arts, but think about what the world will be like without great architecture, without industrial design, without UX, software, user experience design. Art is woven into everything, and you often enjoy things and you often use things because of the art of it. And so, there's a lot that we're going to cover. We're going to be here for, I hope, for many, many decades to come. So join us on our journey. Closing words, Dr. Daystrom?
I think you've covered it quite well. And again, it's that it's that fact that each of us needs to cherish the fact that every day that we live, okay, is a part of history. And that's what we're doing here. We're just trying to find a way to pull everybody together, okay, get the word out, but also achieve some pretty awesome things.
That's it. And you can achieve them by coming to projectstarbeam.com. All one word, projectstarbeam.com. And, we hope you have a great morning,
Yes.
day, night, wherever it is you are in the world. You have a good one.
Yeah, I was going to say, anywhere on this planet you're at, okay, it's either going to be morning, evening, afternoon.
That's it. Oh, and to the Galactic Federation and the honored members, atop of the whatever your unit of Galarbles is.
Very good. All right. Take care, everybody, and thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.